All right, hey, if you have your Bibles, turn with me to the book of Habakkuk, chapter number 2 this morning. Habakkuk chapter number 2. All right. Habakkuk chapter number 2 will be our passage this morning in the scriptures. I'm going to move this over here. All right, you guys hear me okay? All right, Lanai people, we good? All right, cool. Awesome. Habakkuk chapter number 2 this morning. All right, man. I was Steve Anderson and I were here yesterday, and it was brutally hot yesterday afternoon. So I think today feels a little better. Not too great, not too bad though. And so, hey, thanks for bearing with us during this transitional time in our church. And but you know, I'm loving it. I'm loving seeing you guys. And but I just want to lay this out there before you. Just do remember that we do have guidelines that we need to observe as we are gathering again. There was a church in Waipahu, if you read the news recently, that had to completely shut down again because they had some upticks in their congregation with COVID. I think the worst thing would be to have to go back to online services only. I want to avoid that at all costs. I like seeing you guys, right? I like seeing you guys. And I know you like seeing me. Or I think, I don't know. Yeah. Thank you, Father. Yeah, thank you, Father. I appreciate your love. But hey, again, we just want to be mindful of these things and just remember them. So, again, during the preaching, you're welcome to take off your mask if you wish. During the music and any other time, please keep your mask on, just out of respect for everyone else and what's going on. All right, so feel free to do that this time if you wish. Habakkuk chapter number 2. And I see some new faces this morning, and so our church, or you've been back for the first time since the whole COVID thing. So what we've been at is, we've been in the book of Habakkuk now for the past, this is the 4th week now in Habakkuk. And if you're unfamiliar with it, I think it has been just a phenomenal time in the Word. Especially with what's going on around us in society. I'm finding my heart just being able to reminisce what's going on. And it's been just groundbreaking and just very helpful for my faith and for my walk with Jesus. But I'll bring you up to speed real quickly. So Habakkuk is a man whose world is literally falling apart. I mean, in Habakkuk we find a man who just a few years before we see the writing of this, everything's going great. Right? I mean, just think your life just being a tiptoe through the park. Just life is grand. I mean, in context, there's revival going all throughout Judah. I mean, people are turning to the Lord. People are following God. They're obeying the law. They're following God. I mean, things are going great. And just think about this in our society today. I mean, people are just loving Jesus. People are loving each other. No fighting, no bickering. Imagine social media free of drama. I mean, that's what's going on right now in Habakkuk's timeline. I mean, people are liking each other. Neighbors are shaking hands. Well, maybe not during COVID time, but people are shaking hands. And people are loving each other. Things are going great. And then the king of that time, Josiah, dies in battle. And then just a matter of time, things begin to fall apart. People are forgetting how quickly they forget the ways of the Lord. They forget the blessings of God. And they begin turning to false gods. And Habakkuk, seeing the world fall apart around him, people committing murder, people hating each other, the poor are being neglected. The ways of God are being forsaken. Everything's falling apart. And what we find in Habakkuk is a man asking God why. Maybe if I can take it a step further, we find a man accusing God of doing nothing. He says, God, in chapter 1, why do you sit idle while sin is so pervasive? He's asking God, how come the world I knew is no longer the world we see today? How come everything's falling apart? Does it sound familiar? And he accuses God of just being complacent. And then we see God respond, and he says, oh, no, Habakkuk, I'm not sitting idle. Oh, no, Habakkuk, I'm not afar off. No. I'm bringing judgment. But not what you want. I'm bringing the Babylonians, or it was the Chaldeans, who's a neighboring country. Hey, they're going to come in, and they're going to clean you guys out. Maybe if I can give you context here, imagine God saying here to America, hey, you know your enemy Iran? Hey, you know China, your nemesis? Hey, they're going to come wipe you guys out. And then Habakkuk, of course, not liking what he's hearing from God, says, God, I mean, you're too good to allow this to happen. He says, God, why are you allowing a worse nation to conquer a less worse nation? I mean, God, you're too good for that to happen. God, a good God, a sovereign God, would never allow that. So God, what do you have to say for yourself? It's almost like Habakkuk is challenging God. Last week we looked at our limited capacity to understand the ways of God. I mean, when you and I, when we come to God, questioning His will, questioning His plans, do you realize that you come from a viewpoint that is so limited? For example, you have no idea what is going on right now behind you. And it's kind of scary to say that. But do you realize you have no idea what's going to happen to you an hour from now? You have no idea how long Pastor Mike's going to preach this morning. You have no idea. You have no idea what tonight holds. Oh, you may think you do, right? You may have something planned in your calendar, but you have no idea if you're ever going to make it to that far. You have no control over things. And you see how frail and weak we are? So you and I, when we come to God, trying to question His will, trying to challenge His plans, you and I come from a position of little, if any, authority whatsoever. And so now what we see in chapter 2 is God's response to Habakkuk. So I invite you to look at chapter 2 with me. Verse 2. We're going to read it to verse 4, do some preaching, and then we're going to come back to verse 5 and finish off the chapter. But look at verse 2 with me of Habakkuk. It says this. This is God's response to Habakkuk. Oh Lord. Oh, see, that's and the Lord answered me. He says, Habakkuk, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end, it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it, it will surely come, it will not delay. So in essence, what God is saying to Habakkuk is, hey, the vision that I've given you, again, the vision of what? The vision of your coming destruction. Hey, it's coming. It's coming. Hey, I want you to write it on tablets and run throughout Judah with messengers, hey, and tell them what is coming. You know what's interesting? This is the grace of God at hand right now. Because judgment is coming, and He's chosen some to go and tell. Christian, does that sound familiar to our calling today? God is bringing judgment, and yet He has called messengers, you and I as believers, to go and share the gospel, to go and tell, hey, judgment is coming, and yet God is merciful, and God is graceful, so going out and share the good news. It's coming. It may not come when you think it's coming, but it's coming. And when does it come? Well, we see the writing of Daniel, this prophecy coming into fruition. But now as we move on, verse 4 says this, behold, talking about the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, those who are coming to destroy Judah. He says, behold, His soul is puffed up. In other words, he's prideful. It is not upright within him. But, and here's a key phrase here, but the righteous shall live by faith. But the righteous shall live by faith. Now, that is so important to understand that. Because we see in the Bible, echoed all throughout the Old Testament, all the way back from Abraham. Remember, Abraham was justified by his what, church? By his faith. Not by his actions, but he was justified by his faith. And now in the New Testament, in the church, in the age of the church, how are we saved? Not by our works, but we are saved by our faith in Jesus Christ. Not by our own doing, but our faith in Jesus Christ. That is how we are saved. And so all throughout the Bible, we see this resonating message that the righteous are justified by faith. Now, why would this phrase, justified by faith, be right here in the Lord's response to Habakkuk? Well, because again, faith is so important. In fact, in Romans chapter 1, verse 16 and 17, the Bible says this. It says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes." Everyone who believes, it is the power of the salvation. To the Jew first and also to the Greek. For it is the righteousness of God is revealed for faith is written, "The righteous shall live by faith." You didn't know that, did you? When the Apostle Paul writes this, who was he quoting? Habakkuk's book. He's quoting Habakkuk. The righteous shall live by faith. So what does that mean for our passage this morning? I said this last week, and I think this will resonate with all of you. If you're a Christian here this morning, you've been following the Lord for any amount of time, would you not agree that there has come a time, or there will come a time, or maybe right now is that time, or maybe in the stillness of your life, you take a pause, you take a break, and you just maybe wonder, God, what are you doing? Have you ever wondered that before? I've been there. Very recent. Have you ever just paused for a moment and maybe just thought in the stillness of your mind, God, what are you doing? Or maybe you have my audacity and you say, God, I want it done that way. God, what are you doing? God, why would you do it that way? I'm pretty sure my way's better, Lord. There's a truth that I've come to realize in recent years. Do you realize that you and I can trust God for our salvation, which is the most important thing in life? And if we can trust God for our salvation, then surely we can trust God with our lives and then what's going on around us. You see, what does that require though? Because you can try and manipulate everything in your life, right? I mean, how many of you, that's the cause for your anxiety in life. That's the cause for your stress. Like you try to have it all figured out. You try and manipulate the plans of God. And you make a bigger mess of things. Or rather, God calls you to trust Him. And it's hard. I get it. It's hard. I resonate with something I read this week. So there's this story in the Gospels. And I identify with so much. And maybe you will too. So in the Gospels, there's this dad who pretty much brings his son to the disciples. And his son has this reoccurring issue with being demon-possessed. No, and I'm not talking about your kid demon-possessed. I'm talking... that joke. Okay, that joke. Maybe I'm a little too sensitive right now. Okay, sorry. So this dad brings his kid disciples and says, my son, I mean, he falls to the ground, he starts rolling, and he begins convulsing from the mouth, and I mean, this demon possession has even caused my son to be thrown into the water, and he'll even throw him in the fire. I mean, it's getting out of hand. Disciples, can you heal him? And the disciples are trying, you know, they're doing their prayers, I mean, they're doing, and they're not able to heal this young man, this young boy. And then Jesus comes in. And then Jesus rebukes the disciples for their lack of faith. And then the Father says something that I was so well. Jesus, after giving a short lecture on faith, the man who desperately wants to understand why his son is having these issues, and wanting Jesus so badly to heal his son, he cries this. It's found in Mark chapter 9, verse 24. It says this: "Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, 'I do believe, Lord. Help me overcome my unbelief.'" I don't know about you, but that's often my prayer. Like, I look at the world around me. I look at a young boy who recently lost his father and his mother in a matter of months. And I'm trying to make sense of it all. I'm trying to understand a good and holy God. And I'm trying to reconcile the goodness of God and then by what I see. And my cry, honestly, is this: God, I want to have faith that you are good. God, I want to have faith that you are in control. And God, I do believe that somehow, in some way, everything that I see, everything that's happened in my life, is going to work out for good. I want to believe these things, God. God, help my unbelief. God, help my unbelief. Because I'm struggling right now, Lord. My faith is struggling right now. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And see, what you and I fail to often recognize is that God sees the whole picture. You and I only see so far. You and I have such limited understanding, such limited vision. For example, here I have a small cup, right? And if I hold up this cup right in front of me like this, it becomes the only thing I virtually see. But when you look at me, it's something very small, something tiny. But do you see, in life, we often make what's going on right now in front of us so huge. And we begin to ask God, why is this so big in front? Why is this? God sees the whole picture. God sees the whole picture. It's kind of like this. So during this quarantine, I'm even guilty of binge watching Netflix. Anyone just admit it today? Admit it right now. You've been able to binge watch Netflix, all right? So one of the movies I recently watched was The Karate Kid. Okay. And so, I love The Karate Kid. Daniel-san, you know, Mr. Miyagi. I love that. So, but there's this one scene in Karate Kid. I don't know why, but I begin to choke up. I don't know why. I can choke up. And again, I know I'm getting actually emotional, but when I see this scene, it's a beautiful scene. So this is, if you can recall, for those of you who are like younger, you ain't gonna know what I'm talking about, that's okay. You gotta go watch it though. So in the movie, you know, Mr. Miyagi agrees to train Daniel-san, right? And immediately after he begins to train him, gives him a sponge, or he gives him some wax and some cloths, right? And then what does he say to him? Daniel's son, wax on, wax off. And then, like, it's not just one car, right? It's like 4 cars in Mr. Miyagi's driveway. And so for like days, all Daniel's son is doing is wax on, wax off. And then when he's done waxing the cars, what does he do? Hey, he brings Daniel's son to his deck and says, sand, right? Sand. And he begins to have him sand his deck. And then he gets him to paint his house, right? He gets rolling. And there's this crazy scene in the movie where Daniel's son is just fed up with everything. I mean, for days now, he goes to Mr. Miyagi and says, Mr. Miyagi, I mean, this is garbage. This is terrible. What are you doing? And he grabs him, I quit. And then he begins to walk away. And then Mr. Miyagi says, Daniel's son, come back. And he comes back. And he puts Daniel in kind of a fighting stance. And if you recall the movie, he begins to strike Daniel, right? But as he's striking Daniel, what does he tell him? Wax on! And he blocks the punch. Paint the house! Blocks the kick. And this is a beautiful scene in the movie where everything that Mr. Miyagi is trying to teach Daniel is just coming to light. You know what Daniel's son was looking at? What was right in front of him? What was wise Mr. Miyagi thinking? The big picture. And do you see? When God is orchestrating everything in our lives, you and I, we see tunnel vision. We see what's in front of us. God sees the big picture. Do you realize that God is outside of time? Like you and I, we operate off of a linear timeline, right? This happened last year. This happened 100 years ago. My history book. Hey, this is going to happen. You know that God looks at everything like God exists outside of time? And in fact, I don't think time is a concept for God. It's His creation. And so God, when God looks at our lives, when God is bringing judgment to Judah, He's not looking at the temporal, no. He's looking at the big picture. And so you and I, we come to God by faith. God, I don't understand. God, I don't get why. But when we by faith come to the Lord saying, God, I have faith, but Father, it is struggling. It's okay. It's okay. The righteous live by faith. Not just for our salvation, Christian, but also for our sanctification. We live and walk by faith. Now, there's another beautiful truth that I want to drop for us. Look at verse 5 now. We're going to read through the whole passage now. We're going to finish off this chapter. But I want you to look at me at verse number 6 now. Look at verse 6. It says, shall not all these take up their taunt against him, with scoffing and riddles for him, and say, woe to him who heaps up what is not his own. For how long, and loads himself with pledges, verse 7, will not your debtor suddenly arise, and those awake will make you tremble? Then he will spoil for them, because you have plundered many nations. All the remnant of the people shall plunder you. For the blood of man and violence to the cities, and all who dwell in them. Woe to him who gets evil gain from his house, and set his nest on high, to be saved from the reach of harm. In other words, what we're reading now is, oh, yeah, Babylon's going to come and destroy you guys. But don't worry. They're going to get destroyed too. And we see that come to fruition at the hands of the Persians. Verse 9. Verse 10. you have devised shame for your house by cutting off many peoples. You have forfeited your life. For the stone will cry out from the wall, and from the beam, and from the woodwork respond. Woe to him who builds a town with blood and founds a city on iniquity. Behold, it is not from the Lord of hosts that peoples labor merely for fire, and nations weary themselves for nothing. For the earth will be filled, get this now, verse 14, very important verse. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. So in the midst of the destruction, whose glory will fill all things? The Lord's. Now jump to verse 20 now. Because it goes on to talk about the destruction. But jump to verse 20. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. So, God is telling Habakkuk, I'm bringing destruction. I'm going to bring judgment to Judah, and then shortly after that, hey, I'm bringing judgment towards the Chaldeans, the Babylonians. Hey, they will get theirs. But in the midst of all this, my glory will be seen, and I will show that I am the one who reigns. Christian, two things are always happening in our lives simultaneously. It's not this happens and then this happens. No, simultaneously, two things are always happening. Number one, God's glory is on full display. See, it isn't, oh, God is looking down and saying, you know what, I didn't know that was going to happen. Like, God isn't up there saying, oh, that will caught me off guard. God isn't up there saying, looking, working around, saying, goodness. Did I prove that? No. Two things are always happening. God's glory is on full display. And then number two, my good, your good. Those things are always simultaneously happening. So God is bringing about everything. And He's in control. God is in full control of everything going on. I think we gotta take great comfort in this. You all know the story of Joseph? Joseph, you know? So for those who don't know, you don't up in church, Joseph is a man who has a bunch of siblings. And this is a story of why you should not have favorites parents, okay? Because his dad, Jacob, comes up to him and says, Joseph, he pretty much says, Joseph, you're my favorite kid. And like his brothers even know it, okay? So you don't do that. You don't tell your kids that, hey, one's your favorite. Though you may have a favorite, you just don't tell them that, okay? And so Joseph is the favorite, and then his brothers hate him for it. And so what happens in the story is he has a dream, and then in the dream, like basically God tells him your brothers are going to bow down to you. Now Joseph, though he's highly favored of the Lord, you can have God's favor and not be very bright. Okay? It's because he goes, like, some things you keep to yourself, right guys? Like you don't tell everyone what goes on in your life. Joseph, this is one of these times you keep this to yourself. He goes to his brothers, hey guys, guess what? I know y'all don't like me very much. I know I'm my dad's favorite. But hey, did you guys know that I had a dream the other night that like all you guys are going to bow down to me one day? Like you just don't tell your siblings that. And so they get angry and like, oh, that's not going to happen. And so to make sure it doesn't happen, hey, we're going to try to orchestrate your death. We're going to, you know what? If we're going to get rid of you, we must make some money off of it. So they sell him into slavery. And the story just gets crazier from there. Where like he ends up in this mansion with this rich, powerful guy. I mean, he works his way up. This guy is like a legit dude. He works his way up. He becomes the head of the house. His wife, the man, the owner's wife, has the hots for Joseph. And so, while the house is empty, I mean, she's made advances to him before. And so I would think, Joseph, if the house is empty, and it's you and her, I mean, you don't even stay in the crazy lady's house. Like, the lady's crazy. You get out of the house. You go work on the farm. Get away from the crazy lady. But he stays in the house, and basically she accuses him of rape. That ain't going to work over really well with the master of the house. He gets thrown in prison. He works his way out of prison. Like, basically, he's a prisoner, but like he's above the guard. It's like kind of crazy how it works out. And it's just like setback after setback after setback. If you know the story, he works his way up to like becoming like the second in command of all of Egypt. It's crazy. And then there's this climactic scene in the Bible where Joseph's family is hungry, starving. And so they come to Egypt, Joseph sees them, brings them into his presence. They find out who that is second command of all. They bow down, just like we saw in Joseph's dream. They beg for their lives because they know at this very moment, Joseph can be like, "Yo, man, I'm killing every one of you. You put me." Imagine just the bitterness. I mean, yeah, he's the second command, but he didn't get there overnight, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, he spent years in prison. He spent years as a slave. It wasn't all a walk in the park. Yeah, he's in command now, but when he's getting there. And he looks at his brothers and says, "What you meant for evil, God meant it for good." Two things are always happening in life of Christians. God's glory is at work for your good. Hold on to that. Hold fast to that by faith. Because it will come. There will come a time, a day, right now maybe, where those two things will be tested. You will begin to question, God, are you in control? And God, is this really for my good? You know, if you ask me right now, God, why does God allow these terrible things to happen? I don't know. I do not know. If you ask me specific problems, I don't know. But I will tell you this. 10,000 years from now, when we are with the Father ruling and reigning on the new heavens and new, when they are made new, you and I one day will look back at these days and everything will make sense then. Because we will have a greater depth, a greater knowledge, a greater bird's eye view of everything that's happened. So I take a comfort in that. That I may not be able to make sense of everything today, but one day I will be able to look back, whether on this side of heaven or the next. I will be able to look back and say, God, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. Christian, take comfort in that. We have a God who is ruling and reigning, a God who reigns. Let's pray together, shall we? Father, we thank you so much for the ability to gather as a church family. And Father, as we customally do as a church, Lord, we just want to take a few moments to meditate. We want to take a few moments just to pray.